Fellow at the Howard University College of Medicine. We have no disclosures. With the implementation of the Affordable Care Act in the United States, there has been an increase in access to health care delivery. And in fact, more than 20 million Americans who were previously uninsured have gained access to health care following the implementation of this policy. And 40 states out of states in the country has implemented this policy in different forms. And among those states, there has been demonstrated significant improvement in healthcare coverage and also in selected outcomes. The aim of this particular study is to determine if there is an association between the implementation of Affordable Care Act in Maryland and utilization of worldwide gastric bypass. To do this, we conducted a retrospective analysis and used Maryland State Inpatient Database. We compared the pre-ACA period of 2007 to 2009 and post-ACA period of 2018 to 2020. The outcome of interest were the utilization of worldwide gastric bypass. We also studied some selected complications to look at how the impact of the policy affect these procedures and complications. Here we have the basic characteristics of the patient. At the beginning of the study, we had about 16,700 patients, and close to 26.4% of these patients were before the implementation of this procedure, which was pre-ACA period, whereas 73% of the patients actually had this procedure after the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. If you look at it, there was a slight increase in the proportion of females who utilized worldwide gastric bypass following the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. However, when you look at the number of black patients, the proportion of black patients jumped from 32.1% in the pre-ACA period to 47.2% in the post-ACA period. Also, if you look at the number of Hispanics, the proportion of Hispanics who had this procedure jumped from about 1.1% in the pre-ACA period to 5.0%, emphasizing that the implementation of the procedure has led to significant improvement in healthcare coverage. A closer look at this Medicaid expansion shows that if you compare the proportion of patients who were Medicaid beneficiaries who utilized worldwide gastric bypass pre-ACA period, it was 6%. But when you look at the proportion of patients who utilized worldwide gastric bypass after the ACA implementation of the procedure, this jumped almost threefold to about 17.8%. Furthermore, we actually looked at how the implementation of the procedure has also affected some selected complications. If you look at the figure in front of you, the blue line represents the total number of patients who had worldwide gastric bypass. The gray line represents the pre-ACA period, while the orange line represents the pre-ACA period, while the gray line represents the post-ACA period. Across all measured selected complications like prolonged length of stay, post-operative hemorrhage, gastrointestinal leak, and mortality, there was a significant reduction in these complications post-ACA period. We furthermore went ahead to conduct a multivariate analysis to see how the implementation of this procedure actually affects these complication rates. And we adjusted for patient baseline characteristics, we adjusted for pre-existing comorbidities, we adjusted for hospital condition or characteristics, and also lifestyle behavior. And across all these selected complications like the length of stay, post-operative hemorrhage, gastrointestinal leak, or mortality rate, there was a significant reduction in the post-ACA period compared to the pre-ACA period. Then we went ahead in our analysis to compare across the different insurance groups, and we were able to still determine these improvements across each of the type of insurance group. If you look at private insurance, Medicaid insurance, Medicare insurance, across all the selected complications, these patients experience improvement post-ACA compared to the pre-ACA period. We have some limitations to our study, and one of these limitations is the use of administrative databases. The use of administrative databases has been shown to be prone to some coding errors when we're using this, so that's a limitation of our study. Secondly, we were not able to assess long-term complications or long-term outcomes in these patients because our data set was restricted to just 30 days period. And lastly, a retrospective study design cannot prove causality, so we can only state that there was an association. We cannot say that this is actually as a result of the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. In conclusion, the implementation of the Affordable Care Act in Maryland has led to improvements or increase in access to the Roux and White gastric bypass among minority populations like Black patients, Hispanics, or Medicaid beneficiaries. However, when a closer look at this has shown that even despite the inclusion of these minority populations, this has not led to a worsening of the outcomes. In fact, we have better outcomes in the post-ACA period. In a future research, we would love to employ a difference in difference analysis to confirm our findings, to be able to compare what we have found in Maryland to another state like Georgia, which is a non-expansion state. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
We do have time for one question.
Hi, excellent talk. Thank you so much for that, and very informative, particularly in this time of bariatric surgery increases and expansion in insurance. Question for you: it makes sense why the addition of insurance help complications. Any particular reason why you chose gastric bypass only as your surgery choice? Because most patients and a lot of surgeons prefer sleeve, even though sometimes they should get bypass. So why not focus on all the surgeries versus one? I was just interested in that.
Thank you. For this particular study, we chose Roux and White gastric bypass because that's the most popular procedure. So in the future study, we would like to actually do this study across the different types of bariatric surgeries. Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent talk.